Looking to get started with Notion as an absolute beginner, or maybe you've tried it and want more comprehensive guidance? Welcome to this complete beginner Notion tutorial. In this video, I'll be going over what is Notion, creating an account, settings, pricings, all the way to creating a usable personal dashboard. Through creating the dashboard, I'll introduce various Notion concepts and features and how you can mold and create your own workspace. I strongly believe that building from scratch and real-life examples are the best ways to learn, so I hope that you'll be able to have a framework to build off of by the end of this video. If you're already somewhat used to Notion, feel free to skip around to various concepts using the timestamps. If you find this tutorial useful, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Let's first start with what is Notion. You can think of it as your all-in-one digital workspace where you can create literally anything, from simple note-taking to complex project management. Notion adapts to your needs. This means that instead of using one tool for writing like Microsoft Word, another tool for managing projects like Trello, and an app for tracking your habits, it's possible to have everything in one place inside of Notion. It's also unique in that you can start with basic notes and task lists and build as you go, adding more features to suit your specific needs. It's also great for work and personal organization, as you can keep track of books, movies, and even create mood journals alongside managing your day-to-day operations of your business. If you need more powerful features, Notion also has formulas, automations, and AI to level up your workspace. I personally also love the creative element, simplicity, and open-ended possibilities with Notion. Whereas other apps might tie you down to a specific system and way of doing things, Notion makes you think about how you want to organize your own system. That being said, because of the possibilities, it can be overwhelming to new users, which is why I hope that this tutorial can help you get started. The first step to using Notion is to create an account. So you'll want to go to Notion's website and click Get Notion Free. After that, you'll be redirected to a sign-up page where you can use one of these methods to create your account or enter your work email here. Then it's going to ask you to fill in the verification code, and I'm going to go ahead and enter that code. Once I enter that code, it's going to ask for my name, and I can also set a password for my Notion. So now I've added my photo here, my name, and set a password. I can tick this off if I don't want to receive marketing communication from Notion, and then I can click continue. Next, it's going to ask you what kind of experience you're looking for with Notion. Is that for work, for personal life, or for school? It doesn't really matter what you choose here, so I'm just going to click for personal life. And then how do you want to use Notion? Is it with others or on my own? I'll go ahead and click on my own. And next it will ask what's on your mind. Select as many as you want. So here you can select things like whether you want to do project tracking, habit tracking, to-do list, travel, continue. And then it's going to get your Notion workspace ready. So based on what I chose, it basically already populated some things on the sidebar for me that it thinks that I might be interested in. So in this way, it can be a bit easier to get started if you're completely new. I would highly recommend you to use Notion on a desktop app, as that's one of the best and fastest ways to use Notion, and primarily use Notion on mobile devices when you're on the go, but to build your basic workspace structure through a desktop. So if you would like to download the app, I would recommend you to go to Notion's website and then go to download the Notion desktop app and download for your device here. It's just a better experience and much easier to use. And what's nice is while you use the app, you can also access it through the browser. So from this step onwards, I'm going to move over to my desktop app to show you around. So now I'm on my desktop app and it shows the same things as you saw over in the browser. The first thing you'll see whenever you're first getting started with Notion is this getting started guide. It basically goes through the basics such as click anywhere and start typing, hit slash to see what types of content you can add. And this is a really good guideline if you're new to Notion and want to get familiar with it. There's also all of these pages that Notion has added so that you can immediately get started with it. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and delete everything so that we can start from scratch to build up the dashboard. So to do that, you can click the three dots here and delete, move to trash. And let's go ahead and add a page here so that we have a blank page. Then what we're going to do is to go over all of the settings that Notion has. To access the settings inside Notion, you can click Settings here. And basically, you can see all kinds of things that you can set up. So the first thing that it's going to ask is, if you go to My Account, you'll see the profile picture and the preferred name that we added in the very beginning. You can here change your email, change your password to log into your account, as well as add two-step verification. If you want Notion to be able to access your workspace in order to give support, you can turn this one on. And finally, if you want to delete your account, you can click Delete My Account, and you will have to go through this process in order to permanently delete the account in one workspace. Then it shows which kinds of devices that you have accessed Notion on, and you can log out of all devices as well as see when you were last active and which location. Next, you have My Settings. Here you can customize how Notion looks on your device. I personally like light mode, but if you like dark mode, you can switch this one on, as well as use the system setting if you prefer that. The next thing is the tab search. Immediately search for navigate to a specific page when you open a new tab. So when this is turned off, new tabs will follow your default page settings. So what this means is that if I go here and open a new tab, it immediately shows me a search here as opposed to another setting, which is the default page setting. Then the next thing is open Notion links in browser. So by default, macOS will open links in Notion in the desktop app. Turning this setting on will redirect links to your browser instead. So this is up to you how you want to see your Notion links. I prefer to see all of my Notion links inside of my desktop app, so I'm going to keep it like this. Then there's close redirecting browser tabs. So when opening links in the desktop app, close redirecting to your Notion app browser tabs. So this means that when you do open up a page, it's going to close that browser tab that you have open that's redirecting you to here. The next thing is command search. You can open Notion AI and search anywhere with a shortcut, even when your app isn't active. So this is useful because that means that I can access Notion AI even if this is closed and I'm just doing my daily work and I just want to have Notion AI pop up. Then you can set up your command search shortcut. So here you can type something that you want for your command search. You can also add an AI shortcut here as well. And you can also show Notion in menu bar. So this means that you can access Notion faster from the top right of your screen on the top. So this is usually on for me because I want to be able to access Notion very easily. The next options are startup. So on startup, you can choose what to show when the Notion app starts. So is this where you continued when you left off or your default page? Your default page can be what you want to show when you're opening new windows, switching workspaces, or launching app without restoring tabs. So this is currently set to last visited page, or you can also change it to top page and sidebar, Notion AI, or Notion Home. So I would recommend just last visited page because usually that's where you were when you closed it. But if you prefer to always see your Notion Home, for example, then you would switch it here. The next thing is the date and time. You can set time zones automatically depending on your location, which is what I have on. And you can also choose to set your specific time zone if you have this off. Then there's some privacy settings like your cookie settings. So you can customize this as well so that if you want to turn on various settings, you can do so. You can also show your view history. So people with edit or full access will be able to see when you've viewed your page. So right now it's on record. If you don't want to record your view history, you can click don't record. Then the other thing is profile discoverability. Users with your email can see your name and profile pictures when inviting you to a new workspace. This is super useful because it makes sure that when I invite someone to a new workspace, I can see their profile and know that I have the right email address. So I would turn this on. Although that makes it a little bit less private in the sense that other people can see your profile picture as long as they have your email address. Then we have the notification setup. You can allow mobile push notifications when someone mentions or comments via your mobile app. This is really useful, so I have it turned on in my personal workspace. Desktop push notifications is also the same, that you can get notifications on mentions and comments immediately on your desktop app. Then there is the desktop badge icon, so you can show and hide notification badge using the badge application icon switch in system settings. So this is whether or not you want to see that badge icon. Then you can also receive Slack notifications if you'd like, so that when you're mentioned in a page, database property, or comment, you'll receive notifications over on your Slack. Then these are some email notification settings. So activity in your workspace, you'll receive emails when you get comments, mentioned, page invites, reminders, access requests, and property changes. This is super useful, so I would highly recommend keep this on so that you get information about page invites. I tend to join pages through email often, so this is what I like to set up. Then there's always send email notifications, receive emails about activity on your workspace even when you're active on the app. If this is your primary workspace, you might want to turn this on so that you really make sure that you're getting every single notification you can out of Notion. Then there's page updates. You can receive email digests for changes to pages you're subscribed to. Workspace digest, so you can see a glance of what's happening in your workspace. And then you can also set up your announcement and update emails from Notion, which is really useful because then you can get information about the latest changes to Notion and keep up to date with that. The next thing to set up is inside of My Connections. My Connections is where you can connect to your Slack, your Google Drive, to Jira, for example. And you can see more things that you can connect to inside of Notion. Connections means that there is active support for this kind of connection. So for example, with Jira Sync, what you can do is that you can see all of your Jira projects and items from there into Notion, which makes it useful if part of your team uses Jira, but part of your team is using Notion for task management. You still get this overall picture through a central space. Google Drive allows you to see link previews really nicely, as well as with Slack as well. And so here you can see all of the things that it can do. So you can see a link preview. And if it says sync, it can sync information. So all of these are available inside of Notion. For example, this is quite new. You can use Gmail automation. So you can basically add an automation so that it sends emails. So this one's super useful. So be sure to check all of these out, and you can also add this later once you know exactly how you want to connect to outside apps. The next one is language and region. So here you can change the language used in the user interface. These are the currently available languages. So not every single language is reflected here, but hopefully you can find the language that you want to work in. And the other thing is whether or not you want to start the week on Monday, and this will change how all calendars in your app will look. So if you want weeks to start on Monday, make sure to check this off. And I think it's interesting how this setting is inside language and region and not inside of, for example, some other section. So yeah, if you're someone who likes to start their week on Mondays, you can definitely take this on. So underneath Workspace, there is Upgrade Plan. And here it basically explains the entire pricing model. Right now, this sample workspace is on the free plan. One note is that this whole thing is called Workspaces in Notion. So Workspace is your account, and you can have multiple workspaces per email address, but your payments are for workspaces. Here we have in the free plan that you can have up to 10 guests, 7-day page history, 70 plus integrations, and pages and blocks are unlimited for individuals, which means that although it's limited when you have 2 or more members, if you invite people in as guests to your page, you basically still have unlimited blocks. So I would recommend you to start with the free plan, only invite people in as guests to get started. And if you're really sure that you want to use Notion, or if you want to scale up your business, you can gradually upgrade your plans. But the free plan is pretty comprehensive and basically allows you to really get a lot out of Notion. The main limitations are the file uploads, the page history, and the guest invites. The other thing you can't do is have private Teamspaces. You also cannot have automations that are more advanced. So you can only do basic buttons, Slack, and sprints. Whereas with the Plus plan, you can create more automations. So one reason to upgrade to Plus plan, in my opinion, would be the automations and also the chart. So as you can see, you can only have one chart in free, but unlimited inside of Plus plan. So these two features are really great if you're thinking about moving to the Plus plan. The other thing is that Notion.site domains are limited. So there are some limitations. Feel free to go through all of this if you're interested. But for sure, the free plan can allow you to get a lot out of Notion. So feel free to stick to that until you're really ready to move to other pricing plans. And finally, Notion AI is an add-on. So if you want to add it to your plan, regardless of what tier you're on, you should consider adding it to your plan. I personally find Notion AI super useful, especially with creating content. So I would recommend it, but again, I would recommend you to try it first to see if you like it. The next thing is the settings. So here you can name your workspace. So right now it's Sarah's Notion. You can also choose an icon for your workspace. So if I click here, I can even add an emoji. So let's say that I want it to be my home page. So I'll put a home. You can have public settings like allowed email domains. Anyone with email addresses at these domains can automatically join your workspace. This makes it really fast. If you have a small business and everyone has the same email domain, then they can automatically join your workspace. Then you can also export all your workspace content by clicking here if you somehow need to keep a data of that. You can also export list of your members. And you can also save and display page view analytics if this is on. And finally, you have the option to delete your entire workspace through this settings. The next thing is Teamspaces. So Teamspaces is something you can set up inside of your workspace, which allows you to divide your workspace into more organized sections. This is mainly useful if you're working with a team of people with different departments like marketing, product design, and so on. And you want each of those teams to have different team spaces and set up different privacy settings so that if you don't want one team to see another team's information, you can do that kind of setting. So this is a little bit more on the advanced side, and especially if you're looking to use Notion for business, you will definitely want to consider adding Teamspaces and manage them through here. Then there's people. So right now there's only one member here, which is me, and my role is Workspace owner. If I wanted to add someone in here as a member, their role would be as a member. So I would caution against adding members because members are typically charged per seat. And instead, I would encourage you to add people in as guests, which as a free plan user, you would get 10 free guests. So make sure to consider that. But with members, it's really good if you have a company and you want everyone to have access to Notion. For example, on the Plus plan, for sure, add them in as members. So next is Sites, and Sites is a feature that's more robust if you have the Plus plan. There's a lot of things you can customize, but with the free plan, you can still edit, for example, what your Notion.site domain is going to look like. So let's say that I wanted to say organized notebook. Then I can do .notion.site. So now I have my own domain here, and that's completely free. The next is your emojis. This is a relatively new feature, but basically you can add custom emojis to your workspace by uploading images and adding names here. So if you have special emojis and that's going to lift your spirits, your team spirit, then make sure to add custom emojis. You can limit custom emoji creation to workspace owners. If you don't want people to go overboard with emoji creation, then you would want to turn this on. Next is security and data. So here it's mostly for enterprise customers or people with really large businesses that they want to really set up their privacy settings and security settings, data settings. If you are on Plus or Enterprise, you will be able to have access to a lot of these security items. I would recommend you to really read up on this if you are an enterprise customer in the future or you want to know more about Notion security and data. There's also data retention. So once pages are moved to trash, delete them after 30 days. So this is just the default setting at at the moment. You can customize if you're on the enterprise plan for your data retention policy as well. Then there's identity and provisioning. This is again more for enterprise level customers. There is quite a lot of things you can also set up here to make sure you're managing everything really well. Have really good user management, for example, and signing in systems. So make sure to check this out as well if you're interested in Notion for business use. Then we have all of the connections that you currently have. So right now there's Google Drive, Slack, and anyone in Sarah's Notion can access these connections. You can also allow webhooks and automations. This you can also toggle off if you were using it as an enterprise member. You can also discover your connections here as well. Then finally, we have import data. So you can import data from other apps and files into Notion. So if you're using a CSV file that you want to see inside of Notion, you can import CSV files here or other kinds of areas. So this is especially useful if you're looking to make that switch to Notion from other apps. Then you might want to consider using one of these to import data. So those are all of the settings that's available currently inside of Notion. Next, let's go over the sidebar. The sidebar has important navigation within your workspace, as well as being able to access things like settings, download Notion templates, see your trash, and so on. Over at the top, you'll be able to click this open and you'll see the name of the workspace, which plan you're on, and how many members are in that workspace. As you can see, the icon that I added in the settings appears here. You can access your settings by clicking settings here. You can click here to invite members into that workspace. And you can also see all of your workspaces associated with the email that you created the account with. If we click here, you can join or create workspaces or log out. Then if you have other email addresses where you want to create workspaces, you can create work account, you can add another account, you can log out, and you can get iOS and Android apps by clicking here. The next button you see here is a button which allows you to create a new page. If you click here, you'll notice that a new page gets added here. If you want to delete this page, you simply have to click the three dots and then move it to trash. And again, you have one page here. This is a search feature, so you can click here and search throughout your workspace. So as you grow, more and more pages will be added into your workspace, and it can be hard to manage all of them. This way you can search through those and find what you're looking for. Additionally, if you have AI inside of your workspace, you can ask AI to comb through your information as well. Underneath search is Notion AI. So here you can interact with the AI kind of like a chat bot, ask it various questions about Notion even, or through your workspace. You can also connect your Notion AI to things like your Slack and look through those as well. So if I click here, you can see all sources I can access: Sarah's Notion, AI Knowledge, Notion's Help Center, and those are the ones that currently being used in order to give you information. The next thing you'll see here is Home. This is called Notion Home, and you'll see your recently viewed pages. You can learn more about Notion through this Learn section. You can see upcoming events if you connect it to your Notion calendar or your Google Calendar. You can see home views, so important databases will be shown here, and I'll be covering this in more detail towards the end once you have more ideas on what pages and databases are. Next, we have our inbox. So the inbox will show every time you're mentioned here. Any kinds of page activities, page invites should show up in the inbox. You can also filter notifications, so you can only see unread, archive, all workspace updates, and more. You can also lock it so that you always see it here. Then here you'll see private. Private means that this page is only shared with you, so this is a private page. Notion is made up of basically pages, so you can think of this as a page inside of the workspace. If I click here, share, you'll notice that I'm the only one who has full access. If I were to invite someone in here, the sidebar will no longer show this page in private, but in shared. So I can go ahead and invite myself here like this and invite. So now you'll notice that from the private, it's moved to shared. And if I want to revert this back to private, I can move it here, move to private. The other sections of the sidebar are calendar, which is Notion's calendar, which I'll also go over a bit later. Settings, which is where we adjusted all of these settings, which you can also click here and click here to access. Then there's templates. So this is how you can access Notion's marketplace to download various templates into your workspace. There's also trash, where you can see the pages where you've thrown away. So you can see that since I deleted all of those initial starting pages, they are in here. Next, there is the help section. And this is also really useful if you run into any issues as you're using Notion. The first one, help and documentation, you can use in order to search through all kinds of tutorials and documentation. This can be a really great reference if you're looking for specific information. The next thing that you'll see in help is get Notion support. This is also great if you need to get help. After that, there's a keyboard shortcuts here. I also have a full guide on keyboard shortcuts, so I'll also leave that into the description below. But knowing keyboard shortcuts can be a game changer so that you can use Notion really quickly. Then there's also what's new, so you can see the latest updates in Notion, as well as join us and all of these other information. Another really useful one is status. The status allows you to see if Notion is currently operating. Sometimes Notion crashes and then you might think that it's your fault or your internet, but it could be that it's just that Notion is down at the moment. Finally, on the very bottom, you'll notice invite members. If you click here, you can add people in as a member to your workspace. Keep in mind that adding people as members generally means that you'll get charged per seat. So I would recommend adding people in as guests until you're sure that you want this person to be a workspace member. The next thing that I wanted to go over is the various page settings. So now that we've covered the sidebar, it's time to get into actually understanding what pages are in Notion. Pages allows you to add information inside of here in various different formats, from videos, simple text, and all kinds of things. There are two types of pages inside of Notion. This is a regular page. You can also add a database page. Databases are a storage of pages, so a collection of pages. If I were to click the plus sign here and I add a database, just to show you, I can go ahead and click plus new table to create a table view database. So I have a database here. If I open it up, I can add different kinds of pages in here. What's different about this page as opposed to this page is that the database page includes properties, which means that each page that goes into here are bound by those properties. So if I have, for example, a date here, every page I add must have a date. But every page I have here doesn't necessarily need a date. You can do whatever you want with it. So that's the main difference. So again, I added a new page. I can do anything I want inside of here. I can do anything I want inside of here. But with a database, I need to open that page up and you'll see that there is the title and there is a date property. So those are the foundational building blocks of Notion, which is that it consists of pages. You can have pages inside of pages, so you can nest pages inside as well. And you can create databases which contains collection of pages. So hopefully this makes sense. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go ahead and delete this one. And again, we're left with this blank starting page. Now let's talk about page settings. When you have a Notion page, you have these options on the top right-hand corner. The first one is share, and you'll see that you can share this page to different emails, groups, and so on, and invite them in. You can also publish this page to the web. This one is that you can see all of your comments for this page. You can also add comments here. So let's say I added a comment, enter, and now you see that the new comment has been added here. If I click this one, it's going to add this page as a favorite to the sidebar. I recommend you to add pages to your favorites as you go so that your sidebar doesn't get too cluttered. This is a really good way to keep only the essentials here. And if I delete this comment, it's like this now. Then if I go to the 3 dots here, this is where you can do a huge variety of page settings. The first one is that you can change the font to 3 different options: default, serif, or mono. The next one is that you can choose small text or you can choose full width. I tend to use small text and full width toggled on, especially when I create large dashboards so that there's enough space on the page. For this tutorial, I'm going to keep using small text and full width, but one reason you might not want full width is if you're looking to use a lot of text in one space, you want them all concentrated in the middle, then I would recommend to keep full width toggled off and potentially small text toggled off as well. But let's go ahead and toggle on small text full width for this tutorial. Then we have customize page. The first option here is how you want to show backlinks. Backlinks mean that pages linked to this page are going to show up as backlinks here. And if you want to always show them, show on hover, or you can turn them off. Then there's the option for page discussions. So as you can see the discussion here. If I toggle it off, you won't see it. The other thing is table of contents. Table of contents means that if I have a heading here, text here, it's going to show table of contents. So if I have another heading, then you can hover here and you'll see text here, heading here. So those are the table of contents, and you can choose either to turn it off or on. Next is inline comments. You can either choose default or minimal. If I highlight this text and I comment on it, you'll notice that the comment appears here really obviously on the right hand side. But if you want a clean interface, you might not want to see this, so you can also keep it minimal so that it's really small, but you can still open it up. So let's go ahead and actually keep it minimal so that we can have a cleaner view here. The next setting is locking the page. What happens when you lock the page is that you can no longer edit it. So even if I try to type things in here, it's locked, but you can easily unlock it. This is useful if it's just something you don't want to accidentally mess up. You might want to just keep it locked and like that until you need to access it again. Then we have undo. I typically use the shortcut to do undo, which is Command or Control Z, but you can also access the sidebar like this to do it. Then there's copy link, duplicate, and move to trash. Copy link allows you to get a link of this page. What that allows you to do is if I create a new page and paste it in, I can mention it and then I can go to the new page. So that's why it could be useful to get the link to that page. So let's go ahead and delete this one. The next thing we have is to duplicate. If I duplicate this, it's going to create a new page with the same text inside. Then we have import and export. So with import, you can import various things into this page. For example, CSV files and so on. With export, you can do the opposite. You can export this page as a PDF, HTML, Markdown, and CSV. So you can see that these are the options if you wanted to export this page. Then you can click Updates and Analytics to see what you did to the page and your analytics, who viewed it, who are the editors, and so on. After that, there's version history. This is really useful if you accidentally have deleted something you really needed. You can roll back your changes based on the version history. Then we have deleted pages. So this allows you to see all the pages that you've deleted in this space. And here we have how you want to be notified. Based on this page, you want to be notified for all comments this page or all replies and @ mentions. And then you can see what you've connected this page to and manage your connections. So those are all of the page settings. As a beginner, you probably won't use all of these, but it's just good to know what options you have as you get started with using it. Now let's actually start planning out our personal dashboard. And this personal dashboard is meant to be a tutorial so that you can get to know how to use Notion. But I also hope that the personal dashboard can be useful for you as well. So keep in mind that this could be a great framework for your own personal dashboard as you get started with Notion. But I also recommend following this tutorial just so that you learn all of the features. So it's both a tutorial to help you use Notion, but also a tutorial that could potentially help you to design your own workspace as well. So let's go ahead and unlock this now, and we can get started with creating this personal dashboard. So let's say that I want this to be Sarah's personal home. I'm going to be adding all kinds of things relating to managing my day-to-day life. First things I would like to do would be to add an icon, and you can choose whatever icon you want here that matches your personality. You can also choose Notion's icons in different colors like this, as well as upload images to be your own icons. So there are 3 options when it comes to these page icons, and for this I'm just going to use a house. And since I like green, I'll choose green. The next step is going to be to add a cover photo. You can also not use cover photos, but I think it adds a nice personal touch, so let's go ahead and use one for this. You can click change cover, and for cover photos, here are all the options. You can either use Notion's gallery, where you have all of these options here. You can upload an image, you can link to an image, and you can use Unsplash, which is a stock image library. I often gravitate towards Unsplash just because there's just so many options and you can search for things. So let's say that I want a foresty theme, so I'm gonna go ahead and look for a nice forest image, and that's going to be my cover photo. So I'm going to choose something like this one here. And since I like the top part of this image, I'm going to click reposition and move over the photo so that it matches like this and save position. So now I have my icon and I have my cover photo. The next thing I'm going to start doing is to decorate my personal home. And in order to do that, slash commands are very useful. Slash commands, if I click slash, allow you to add various blocks. So that's the next layer of Notion. Notion is made up of pages. Inside of each page lies blocks. So each of these are blocks. And you can think of them as Lego blocks, which means that you can move them around however you'd like. Let's say that I want to add a YouTube video here that kind of gives me a nice mood. So I can already click here to find a video and click this here and embed the link to that video. So let's say that I want to add this video here to my personal home to get me into the mood, cozy coffee shop. And I'm going to type slash again to make columns. So if I type columns, I'll find 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns, 5 columns. In this case, I'm going to be creating 2 columns. And I'll click this 6 dots here to move this to the left-hand side, like this. So now I have my video here, and I can also write things inside of here. All the blocks, you'll notice 6 dots that you can drag to move. So same here, this is a block and you can move it. Same here, you can move it around. The other thing you can do when you have these blocks is to click it, and you'll be able to suggest edits to the block, ask AI, you can delete the block, duplicate the block, you can turn it into different blocks, you can copy a link to the block, you can move it, and you can change the color. So next, let's maybe go over the text options. So Now that I have my cozy coffee shop here, so here I'll put favorite music. Then what I can do is if I click the 6 dots here, I can color it to a color I want, maybe green. So in this case, I'm going to go with the green background and black text. Then if I double click this, I can also use AI to explain, ask AI. I can comment on it. I can suggest edits. I can turn it into various things. I can also bold it, italicize, underline, strike through, mark as code. I can mark as equation. I can add a link, and I can change text color this way as well. So now that I have this here, I can edit the text in a variety of ways. I can also do all kinds of things here as well. So now what I can do is actually I want this to be a heading. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it into heading 3, which means that it's bigger and it's also going to show up when I make a table of contents. Underneath favorite music, I'm going to do another slash and then choose heading 3. You can also choose heading 1 if you want bigger text. I tend to gravitate towards heading 3 because I think it looks nicer when it's not so big. But you can also add various levels of headings. If I chose heading 1, so if I were to do heading 1, you'll notice that if I move this above here, it's going to show the hierarchy. So you can see dashboard, favorite music. So that's why there are the different headings. I'm going to turn this one into heading 3. I'm going to also change the background color to be green like this. And I'm going to move over my favorite music to the left-hand side and drop it in. So now I have my favorite music and I have my dashboard here. I'm going to go ahead and slide this over so that now I have favorite music and dashboard. The next thing to know is that you can do slash and then do things like dividers. Dividers are also useful to divide different blocks. So I also like to use this underneath text to make it clear which one is a heading. I can also add this under favorite music. Another really useful thing to do is to embed links and widgets and anything you want from the web, you can actually embed. So to show you how that works, I'm going to go ahead and type slash, and the next thing I'll do is to embed, which means that you can embed a wide variety of things. So you can see PDFs, Google Docs, anything. You can just put the link in here and it embeds. Let's say that I want to embed a favorite link here. So I want to always be able to access Google Maps. I'll embed the link to Google Maps. So now if I paste this in, embed link, you'll see Google Maps show up as a bookmark like this. Let's add a new section here for favorite links. So I'm going to type slash, and this time just to keep things different, I'm going to add a toggle heading. So toggle heading and favorite links. Then if I open it up, I can again use the 6 dots to drag my Google Maps into here. So I always have my favorite links. And to keep things looking the same, let's go ahead and color this one also green background. So now I have my favorite music, my dashboard section, and favorite links. And since I haven't added any pages inside, you'll notice that there's nothing inside like this. Just to play around with more slash commands, let's go ahead and click slash, and next we can add a callout box. Callout boxes allows you to pay attention to certain things and add messages here, but it's also a really good way to add information inside. So if you wanted to write some information in here, you can also do that with callout boxes. Callout boxes also comes with different colorways as well that Notion has. So I could do default background, which would look like this. I can also change it to green background and all kinds of other colors. Since I can bring attention, I'll just put this at the very top and I'll change the icon to Notion's icon set, something that calls attention. So let's do a light bulb. And one thing that you should know is that you can also remove this icon if you don't want it. So here I can write something like, this is my personal space to keep track of my daily life. And let's say that I want this to be in italics, I can do that. Then what I'm gonna do is to keep adding more things to the personal home. So just keep having fun with this section. You can also create your own personal style here, different colors. You can add all kinds of things, images. Maybe we can next add an image for a mood photo. If you add an image to Notion, you can add your own image, embed a link, Unsplash, or even a GIF. So I'm going to go ahead and click Unsplash and look for more forest pictures just to get me more into this forest mood. And again, this is really big, so I can drag this into my column. So if I click here and drag it in, it's going to show up here now. And actually, I think I like it if it's up here, so I'm going to put it up here. Then I can even add comments. I can align differently, caption. So let's say this is forest mood photo. And now I have my favorite music. I have favorite links. Let's also add this type of tag to the photo as well. So I'm going to type slash and I'll choose heading 3 again, favorite photo, and I'll move it over here and click the 6 dots here, color, and then green background. Then again, let's click the plus sign here, slash divider, to add this divider. So another thing you'll notice when you're moving blocks is this plus sign. So you can click this to add a block underneath it. Next, let's go ahead and add a favorite quote. So we can do slash heading 3, favorite quote. Change the color here to green. And then we can type slash divider to add the divider. And one quick trick to move everything around at once is to click around here and then highlight the blocks you want to move, then click one of the 6 dots and then move it. So now we have our favorite quote here. Let's also add that divider here as well, so we can keep everything unified. And in here, we can do the quote block, something like this. And you can add my favorite quote and quote author. So something like this you can do as well. If we click slash, we can check what other kinds of things we can do. There's also bullet list, numbered list. You can create to-do lists, very basic ones. So let's say that we want, for example, a quick task list here, quick tasks. And I'll turn this also into heading 3 and turn into, or color, green background. And I have quick tasks. And underneath here, I'm going to do slash divider. And we can add quick tasks. If you want to quickly duplicate blocks, you can type Control Command D here to create more like this. So now we have quick tasks. And since the quick tasks might look better on the left-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and move it over here like I showed with the drag method. So now we have quick tasks, favorite photo, favorite music, favorite links, favorite quote, and so on. Let's type slash to see what else you can do. You can add tables. So actually this could be a nice thing to add. So I'm going to go ahead and add this and I'll put something like daily schedule. So if you're someone who likes to block out their schedule every day, or you want to show this off, you can do simple tables like this. So you can do color, green, and time and activity. So this is something you could do if you want to showcase your daily schedule. So let's say that this is 9 a.m. and your activity here. The next thing I wanted to show is that you can add certain inline things here. So let's say in your quick tasks, you want to quickly remind yourself to finish laundry. And then if you type at, you'll be able to remind, for example, tomorrow at 9 a.m. And now there's a reminder for this, as you can see. So here it says remind on the day of event. You can also mention people. So if I wanted to mention myself, it would look like this. So these are all things you can do inline that can be very useful when you type add. So at this point, you should be pretty familiar with the slash commands, and you should now know that you can do add commands to mention either pages, people, or dates. Now we can get into databases. So as I mentioned earlier, databases are a way to organize your pages with certain characteristics like dates or information. So you could have a database of contacts, and each contact would have a name, an address, phone number, and each of those are database pages. So the first database I wanted to add is going to be a notes database in table view. Each of these databases that I'm going to be sharing with you are going to be in different views so that you can get a feel for what database type matches to each kind of scenario. So in the case of a notes table view would be really useful for that. And one thing to note is these database types, you are not limited to one view, but you can see your notes in different views. But to make things simple, we're just going to start with one view at a time. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and add a block under quick tasks and move it above it. So now we have a block here. Then I'm going to type /heading 3, and this one is going to be called dashboard databases. And I'm just naming it this so that you really know that these are databases, but you could name it something like navigation or important pages and so on. So I'm just naming it this so that it's very clear. Then we do green background and again /divider. So inside here, we're going to start building the databases that would go into the personal home. And to do that, I'm going to type / and then database. And when I click /database, you're going to see all of these options. You can create an inline database, which means a database that just appears on this page. Then there's a full page one where you can add a new database as a subpage. And then you can choose various views. So I'm going to go ahead and do database as full page. So this has now created a new page inside of Sarah's personal home. I'm going to name this notes, and let's go ahead and add an icon for notes or notebook or book, something like this. And now we have our notes. If I click here, these are called breadcrumbs, but you can easily go back to the home page. So now I have my dashboard databases here, and one is called notes. And as you can see, because I added a page inside of a page, now you can see that there is a page inside of Sarah's personal home. One thing to show is that you can also type /database. And if I were to just click table view, it's just going to show the table like this as a block. So I can move it around and do all kinds of things with it. So if I were to move it here, you'll see like this. So this is a database. However, if I open it up, now we see the database as a full page, and you'll also see this inside of the here as a page. So sometimes this can be kind of confusing because although this one is a database page and this one is a database, you see this one as a page and this one as an inline, but the way that the hierarchy shows is the same. So I prefer to personally add databases inside of a certain database area just so that it's really clear that this is a database page. So I'm going to delete this. So now we have notes, and when I click notes, I see a notes database here. So now what we're going to do is start building out the database page. When you have a database page, you can add a cover photo just like other pages inside of Notion, and you can change the cover or you can remove this. You can also add a description. This is where I keep all of my notes. So in case that you need to describe this, you can add this information. So now let's go ahead and start building out the notes database. So in a notes table, something that can be useful is that first you have the title of the note. And one thing I like to do when I design databases is that I start adding a sample entry. So in this case, the title of the note would come here. So what else would you want to have inside of a note? You would want to add the date that you wrote it. So here, when I click here, this is called a property. So the property is what defines the characteristics of each page that goes into this notes database. So in this case, I do want to know when it was created. So I'm going to type created and then I'll find created time. So this is automatically shown. So you don't have to even add anything here to find the created time, which is really useful and saves time. And inside my note, then I can click plus add a property. Some other things that could be useful is a tag. So let's say that this is a study note. So now I've tagged it as a study note. A few other things you might want to add is plus add a property. And here you can see suggested properties. So they suggest maybe you want to add attachments. So I could click attachments and now I have a place I can add a file. If I click plus add a property, this is basically your entire set of options you can add inside of a database page. You can either do a text property, number, select, multi-select, status, date, person, files and media, checkbox, URL, email, and so on. So there's a lot you can do here. One thing that's really useful when you have a table view database is that if you add a number, so let's say that this is number of words. So let's say that I wrote 900 words inside of this note. Then if I click here, you can now click here to calculate various things. So if I wanted to know my average, it would calculate that for me. So in this sense, table view can be really useful when you have numerical values that you want to calculate, for example. As well as you can also see all of your information at one glance like this all the way across, and that can be really useful as well. Another trick for table view is if you click here, you can freeze up to the column, which means that now if it was really long, you can scroll like this and have that freeze here. A few other things, since this is our first database that we're adding, is to add pages to the database, you can click plus new page here, or you can click the new button here to add a page. The other buttons that are here, for example, is this one, which is all of the properties. You can hide properties like this, so you only see the title, or you can bring them back using the eye symbol. You can also click here to add new properties. So if I wanted to add a text here, and I can edit the name of this by clicking here, and I can call this one quick summary. I can edit the property. So once I have that type, I can also change the type again if I want to. I can also change the icon here if I want to. And I can do all of these options. Wrap column can be useful if you want to be able to see a lot of text, but you can also toggle it off if you don't like that it expands so much. On here, you'll see options to filter. So if I only wanted to see notes that are study note, I can filter it out like this. I can also sort it based on, for example, the created time. I can also add automations, which we'll cover later. I can search through this notes table, and I can click here to see the full options. And if I click here, layout, you'll notice that these are all of the layouts that Notion offers for databases. And even though this notes database started as a table, I can easily convert it to any of the other layouts if I'd like to view it that way. Some other options pertaining to the notes table is that I can show vertical lines on or off. I can wrap columns. I can open pages in side peek, center peek, or full page, depending on my options. And I can also toggle on show page icon or hide it. The show page icon is if I click this open, And let's say that I don't have this icon here. I can type something inside. If I close it, you'll notice this paper mark here. If I don't want to show this, I can go ahead and click the layout and then toggle off show page icon. So in this way, you can either decide to show this or hide this. The next thing you'll notice beside the new button is this arrow mark here where you can add templates inside. This is a bit more advanced, so I'm also going to cover this a bit later on in this video. Now if I go back, we now have our notes database in table view. So the next database I'm going to be creating is going to be a task database in board view, which is another type of view in Notion. We can click the plus sign here and then /database, and I'll choose full page again to create a page. This is going to be called tasks. And instead of table, I want to see this inside of board view. So I'm going to click the three dots here, layout, and then go to board view, where you'll see this view. So now you can see not started, in progress, and done like this for my tasks. Just so that we can start seeing something, I'm going to go ahead and add a page to not started called task 1. So we can have a sample here. Let's add an icon. So we can go ahead and go here and checkbox. Once we have the checkbox, we can add a cover photo if we like. You can also add a description. And now what you can do is start editing the board view database. Board view is really useful when you have multiple statuses. So this is why it's really suitable for task databases, because you can move your tasks between different phases of when you're working. If you want to edit these, you can go to the three dots here, go to group, and right now it's grouped by status. And I can go ahead and show all of the options. So now we have not started, in progress, and done shown here. I can also choose to color the column by toggling this on. And if I go back, I can also add different properties, filters, and so on, just like the table view database. The other layout options, if I go to layout, is that you can choose card preview. So if you want page cover or page content. So just to show you what that would be like, let's say that task 1 has a cover photo, and I'm gonna add a flower picture here like this. And I'll also add some descriptions about this task. So now if I open this up, then you'll notice that there's something inside the page as well as a cover photo. If I go to the layout, I can toggle this on and I can choose page cover, which would show the flower, or I could choose page content, which would show the descriptions about this task. In this case, I'm just going to choose none because it's just a task list. Then you can also choose between card size, small, medium, or large. I'll keep it to medium. You can choose to wrap properties or not. So let's actually go ahead and add a few properties. Each task, you might also want to know a tag. So I'm going to go ahead and choose multi-select, which means that you can select multiple options, and I'll call this tag. Let's say that this is a household task. I'll add household. Another thing could be a due date, so plus add property, and I'll add a date so that you can add a due date. Then that's a very basic task list that's going to work. So I'm going to close it. So now that we have the properties here, I can go ahead and go to the three dots here and then go to properties and choose which ones I want to show. So I want to show the due date, the status, the tag. And now I can go ahead and click the three dots here. And if I go to layout, I can choose whether or not I want to wrap the properties. I can again choose what I'm grouping this by, and you can also move this around if you'd like. You can choose to group by status, status by option. Status by option means whether or not it's based on these three big groups or the smaller groupings. So I'm going to go ahead and group by option. Whether you want to hide empty groups or not, whether you want to color columns or not. You can also choose how you see them. So if you don't want to see the done like this, you could hide them like this as well. Then the other thing you can do, just like with table view, is you can hide the page icon. You can choose how you open up the page, whether that's center peak, full page, or side peak. And those are the layout options. Then there's filtering, sorting, and also subgrouping with board view. So if I wanted to also subgroup these, I can click this one. And now you'll see that I also see that this is for household. So if I had a task 2, which was actually not that, then let's say this is for work, you'll now see my task here. With board view, you can easily drag and drop between different statuses like this. Then you can also choose load limits, and you can customize tasks, lock database, copy link to view, duplicate view, or delete database. So for now, this works. So I'm just going to keep it like this so you can see your task list. I'm going to simplify it by removing the subgroup. So subgroup by none. And we have a very basic task list like this. Now, if I go back to my personal home, you'll notice now we have notes and tasks. When you open up a database page, you'll notice that you see table here, you see board here. So these are the various database views. The next one I'm going to add is going to be a gallery view journal. So let's go ahead and add another one, /database, and I'm going to choose full page and plus new table. And this one's going to be my journal. For journal, we can go ahead and again add an icon. Choose icons, and this one is going to be a page like this. So now we have our journal. For this one, I want gallery view, so I'm going to click the 3 dots here, change the layout to be gallery view. What's great about gallery view is that it allows you to see images really well. So that's the main perk of having a gallery view, like the name suggests. And let's say that this is my journal entry 1, and I'll add a cover photo. So let's say that we have a flower picture here. So I'll choose this one. And now what you'll have to do is go to the 3 dots here, layout, and we need to show the page preview to be page cover in order to showcase that flower. You can also, like the others, show page content if you have something inside you want to showcase. And then we have the option to fit image or not. So these are the 2 options. You can wrap all properties. You can open pages in center peak. So again, you have the 3 choices, show page icon. To use this journal, let's go ahead and add some properties. So just like with the others, I'm going to click it open plus add a property. Here, let's go ahead and add a date. So this one is going to be the date written. Then I'm going to add another property, which is going to be called location. And this is going to be a text property, location. Then we can also add a tag, just like the others, called multi-select. And here we can say something like tag. So now let's say that this is a flower. Location was in my garden. And the date written was today. And my journal entry here. So now we have a journal entry, and we can go ahead and click the 3 dots in order to showcase it. Again, we go to properties, turn on these eye icons. So I want to see the date written, I want to see the location, and I want to see the tag. And I also want to hide this icon. So I'm going to go here and hide it. So now we see the image, the journal entry, and some information corresponding to it. So this is the basics of gallery view. You can do all of the different settings just like the other databases. So if I click back to personal home, you'll notice notes, tasks, and journal. The next database view I want to showcase is called list view. To create a list view, you can click plus here and type /database just like the others. And just to change it up a bit, I'm going to show you another way to add a database page, which is if I chose list view here like this, plus new list. And if I want to turn this into a page, I click the 6 dots here, turn into page, and now we have it here. So that's another option if you want to create pages, which are databases. And let's say that this is going to be my shopping list. I'm going to add icon, and this one is going to be shopping. So with list view, it really excels when you want to see really quickly a list. So table view tends to have a lot of information and properties you want to see alongside each other. List view typically has less properties. So for example, it could be a list of meeting notes where you have the name of the meeting, the date, and who attended. So maybe like 3 properties. In this case, a shopping list is just going to have the item, whether or not you bought it, potentially the store name. So let's say that I'm going to click here. I need to buy carrots. Then what I can do is open this up, and then I can edit the properties. So since I created the list in the other section, it already pre-filled some of the properties. I don't want these, so I'm going to click here and delete property. I'm going to click here and delete property. So instead, I'm going to plus add a property, and this property is going to be a multi-select where I can choose store. So let's say that this one is sold at Trader Joe's, and I can also add a property, which is whether or not I bought it. So I'm going to put a checkbox for this one and call it bought. So whether or not I bought it, and store, and then the date. So date, bought. So this should allow me to keep a very basic track of my shopping list. And if I go to the 3 dots here, properties, I can choose which ones to show. I want to see whether or not I bought it. I want to see the store, and I can now move the property so that I can see the bought check mark next to the carrots like this. If I go back, the next thing I can do is go to layout and change that so that I don't see the page inside. I can also choose how it opens, just like the other views, but as you'll notice, this is a very, very simple database view, so there's not that many options for the layout. You can also group it just like the others. For example, a useful thing could be if I wanted to group it by store, so Trader Joe's carrots like this. And we'll do one more thing here, which is that I want to filter this list based on whether or not I bought it. So I'm going to click bought, and I want to make sure that this view is unchecked. So I'm going to rename this view to be called not bought. I'll do one more thing, which is more advanced now that we're creating more databases, which is that I'm going to add another view here, which is going to show the ones where everything is shown so that you don't lose any of the information. So here I'm going to click this again, duplicate, and I'll put bought, and I'll click filter, and instead of unchecked, we'll put it checked. So now if I check this off and it's bought, it's going to move over here. And one more thing I'm going to do is that we don't need to know the store name because we've grouped it. So I'm going to click the 3 dots and properties, and I'm going to hide the store name. So now it's just very simple like this. If I want to add a new item, let's say that I need to buy a new charger cable from Best Buy. I can add something like this. And let's also hide the property for store from here as well. So now we have 2 items here, and you can see all the items you bought. So if I bought the carrots, it's going to show up here. So as you can see, shopping lists are a great way to use this list view. Now we've added 2 tabs here for different filtered views of this shopping list. And because the information gets really wide, I would recommend list view for when you want to see it in a narrow format like this, or just when you want something simple. Now, if I go back to my personal home, I've created my shopping list. So again, all of the pages look really clean inside of my personal home. The next database view I wanted to cover is a calendar. So I'm going to go ahead and add plus here. And I'll do the other method, which is to find the database view like this, and then plus new calendar. And then I'm going to convert it to a page by clicking the 6 dots, and I'm going to turn into page. So now we have the calendar here. I'm going to name this personal calendar. I'll put an icon for calendar like this. So for a personal calendar, let's say I'm going to add an item here, meeting for work. You can click here, add end date. So then you have 2 dates. You can include a time. So in this case, it would be useful to have a time. Let's say it's at 3 p.m. You can add a reminder, date format, time zone, and clear it. Then tag could be that it's for work. And then you can even add things like attending people, for example. If you're using it with multiple people, person property can be useful. So you can add who's coming like this. If I click plus add a property, another useful thing would be location. So I'll put location. Let's say that Cafe A is where we're going to meet. And you can even add meeting notes inside of here directly as well. Now, if I click out, I can click the 3 dots here, properties, and again, I can showcase this information. So I want to see the tag, I want to see the person, location. So all of this gets shown here. One downside to calendar views in Notion in particular is that the word tends to get cut off. So it's not so great when you need to see the full title. If I click the 3 dots here, go to layout, you can wrap page titles, which makes it a little bit better in some cases. In this case, it doesn't really make a difference. The other layout options for calendar is show calendar by, and if you have multiple date properties, you can show it by the date you prefer. You can show it either by month or week, like this. You can show weekends or hide weekends. You can choose the view that it opens to, and you can decide whether or not to show the page icon. Some other things you can do is just like the others, filter, you can sort, add automations, and customize, and so on. So that is the basics of calendar view. Now that we've created this one, we can go back to personal home. So now we have 5 databases, each with different views, and you see them on your sidebar like this. The next one I wanted to showcase is a timeline view. So let's say that along with these, you also want to track your projects. So I'm going to click plus here, and now let's add a timeline view. So this is timeline view and plus new timeline, and I'm going to go ahead and click the 6 dots here to change it into a page, turn into page. If I click here, let's say that these are projects. So each card here is going to be a project. Let's say that this one is that I want to read 10 books. So that's a project I have. You can assign it to people. You can choose the status like this. If you don't want the assign, you can delete this property. And you can also add a description. Maybe I'll do that for this one. So text, description, like this. This is a project to increase my reading. And then you can set up a time frame. So if it's that you want to finish it this month or next month, you can do that. And you can change the time that you see it by. So in this case, it would make more sense to see it by quarter, because you want to be able to read, let's say by March 10th, or even by year. Then you can see even more time frames. So you can do something like this. These cards you can also move over. So you can do this. And let's say that once you read this, you have another project here. So let's say that this is to redesign my backyard. And let's say that we delete card 3. So we have 2 projects right now. You can also do things simultaneously as well. And you can also showcase those properties by clicking the 3 dots properties. And just like the others, you can show the description, you can show a status, and even the dates. One thing with timeline view is that you can also display a table at the same time so that it's easier to see. things. So let's say that you want to see the status here. Then you can do something like this, or even just the name so you can easily find your projects. You could do something like this, or you can just toggle it off. So that's an option when it comes to timeline view. If I go to layout, you can also see that you can show table by and table, and you can toggle it off or on. Show timeline by date. So if you have multiple dates, you can add different dates here. Different ways to open it, page icon just like the others. So those are the options for timeline view. You can also group it. So if you wanted to see not started timelines, you can do that as well. I'm going to keep it off. So now we have this. Now if I can add an icon, I'll add something like project like this. So now we have our projects database. So now we have 6 database views, which are the main database views of Notion. So notes was in the table view, tasks in board view, journal in gallery view, shopping list in list view, personal calendar in calendar view, and projects in timeline view. So as you can see, each one has a different characteristics on why this particular view was chosen for this item. So notes are really great in table view, for example. But of course, this isn't a hard rule. This is just suggestions. So you could see your notes in timeline view if you really wanted to see them. But timeline view is mainly when you want to see a broader picture of your timeline. The next thing I wanted to show is database templates. Database templates allow you to save certain templates pages inside so that you can save time for outlines and things like that. So we're actually going to go back to our notes. And to access database templates, you can click this arrow here plus new template. Let's say that you want a specific template for meeting notes where you have /heading 3, brief, summary, and then you might want a action list, and you might want a next steps. And here you might want a checklist so that you can track your next steps. Here you might want a bullet list, so you might want to do this. And here you would have your brief summary. So every time you choose meeting notes, you want to be able to see all of these. So now if I want to create a meeting note, I can click plus new page, open it up, and click meeting note to have this set up already inside. So this can save a lot of time. Let's say that study notes have a different criteria for outline. So I can do plus new template, study note. And here, /heading 3, let's say that this is a brief overview, /heading 3. This is study questions. And inside here, I want bullet points, and I put bullet points here like this. Then let's say I open this one up, I open it up, and I want it to be a study note. I can click it here. You can also define properties for these already. So let's say that if I edit this one, the tag is always meeting if it's a meeting note. And the tag for study note is always study note. I can also create new pages just by clicking these. So if I want a new study note, I just click it, generates one like this. So in that way, these are very useful. The next thing I wanted to show is that you can take this a step further by making it recurring. So if I click the 3 dots here, you'll notice that I can repeat it by clicking here. And if this is a weekly meeting, I can set up weekly, save, and every week it's just going to show this page added to this notes, which can be really useful so you remember when your next meeting is and so on. If you want to stop it, you can click here and turn it off. Some other options is to set it as default. If you set this particular template as default, for all views, every page I add is a meeting note like this. And when I open it, it's going to have that template inside. So when you have multiple templates, for example, it could be a meeting note, it could be a study note, then you'll want to keep the default to be empty and then actually choose it yourself. So here you would choose it. However, if you only have one kind of template, you can already set this one as a default so you don't have to keep clicking that one. If you want to edit that template, you just simply have to click edit. You can duplicate that template or you can delete it. A quick tip here is that if you always want a specific icon to show up, this is where you can also do it. So let's say that meeting notes, you always want meeting, something like this as your icon. Then every time I open one up and I select meeting, it's always going to have the same icon. So this can create uniformity within your databases. The next thing I wanted to show you is charts. So charts is a relatively new feature which allows you to see your database items in a more visual way. And it's also typically used together with an already pre-existing database. So let's say that we want to show a chart of our tasks. Then what I can do is click the plus sign here, choose chart, and then you can see the tasks in each of these areas. Something you can do is click here and edit the chart. So charts come in vertical, horizontal, line, and donut. I could get really in-depth into charts as well, as there's so many types of customizations that you can do, but I'll just show you briefly that in this task case, something that could be interesting is to show a chart of the different types of tasks. So let's say a donut chart where we see the tags and we can see that each slice represents the count, and you can also choose different color schemes and so on. So if I had a bit more types here, like let's say this one is for childcare, this task is for the business, and so on. If I click chart now, you'll see even more types. So this is one way to use a chart. It can also be useful for financial tracking. You can show really a lot of things, like how much time is spent on each task per person, things like that. One thing I want to note with charts is that if you are on the free plan, you only get to have one chart per workspace. So keep that in mind if you're adding charts. Now that we have 6 different databases, let's go ahead and explore relations. So relations allow you to connect different databases to each other. So for example, in this case, a really useful thing to do would be that if you can see the tasks relating to your projects. To do that, I'm going to go into tasks, open one up and click plus add a property, and I will make a relation. Then it's going to ask which database you want to relate it to. In this case, I want to see my projects. So I'm going to click projects and I'll click two-way relation, which means that both the tasks database and the projects database can see each other. So I'm going to turn this on. The limit means whether or not you can add multiple projects to one task. So I'm just going to click like this and add a relation. Now I can choose what this is. So let's say that this is part of redesigning my backyard. Research what kinds of flowers I want. And I can even add a due date. So now I have my project assigned to this task. I can click the 3 dots, go to properties, and show this project here. So now if I click this open like this, you can see the project page inside of here. If I go back to my home and go to projects and I click this one, you can now see that I have one task inside here. So it goes both ways. In the case of the tasks, I might not necessarily want to see them here like this. You can also click here and change the property visibility. I can also, for example, always hide. If I don't want to see the task, I can always show, and so on. If I click edit property, it shows these settings through projects as well. If I click the plus sign here, and I click the three dots here, I can show the status as well, so that now I can see that this task is not started for this redesign my backyard. Since I'm on my timeline view here, the next thing I'll show is dependencies. So dependencies means that one item of this database depends on another. So let's say that before I redesign my backyard, I need to finish researching about it. So research what kind of backyard I want. I can move this connector here to create a dependency so that finishing this is necessary before I start the next step. If I turn this on, I can shift only when dates overlap, shift and maintain time between items, or do not automatically shift. I can also avoid weekends. So now I can click turn on dependencies so that if I click this open, you can see blocked by and blocking. So this is blocking redesign my backyard. Then what I can do also is go to the three dots here, customize projects, and here I can edit the dependencies as well and choose advanced settings. Even if you're not in a timeline view, you can turn on dependencies. So let's say that for some reason I need dependencies in my notes. I could go to the three dots here, customize notes, and add dependencies. But of course, usually it's really nice to do it when you have a timeline view. You can move it and it shifts. So this is also really nice to see sort of project progress. Now that we have covered dependencies, let's go ahead and cover rollups. Rollups are something you can only add when you have relations. So the only databases that have relations right now are between projects and tasks. So let's say that I want to know how many tasks I have inside of that particular project. I can click this one open. Right now I have one task here, and I can click plus add a property rollups. Rollup is going to roll up information from the relation that I have. So for example, I'm trying to roll up information from tasks. What I want to know is the count. So count all. So I see 1. So I can rename this number of tasks like this. So now I know number of tasks. I can also do things. If I go here, edit property, I can also calculate percentages, whether or not it's empty or not. I can go here, status, show the percentage per group that is complete. So it's currently 0% complete. If I were to complete this and I go here, then it's 100% because there's only one task. So let's say that I add more tasks here. Task to design backyard. Then I can add a new task. And this one is not started, so now it's 50%. So I can rename this completion and see a percentage of completion. So if this was done, then this becomes 100%. So in this way, rollups can be really useful for calculations. Next, let's go over formulas. So formulas is one feature of Notion that can either be as complicated or as simple as you'd like it to be. I'm not going to go into too many details with the formula, as it could easily be another full tutorial video, but I am going to show you a few basics so that you can get started with formulas. The first formula I'm going to show you is simple text formula. Text formula means that you can just simply display text. So if I go to my journal and I want a fancy way to show this location information here, I can click this open plus add a property formula. And here I'll add text formula. And if I click this open, now I'm ready to add formulas. What I want to do is I want the location to be stylized in a way that I might want it to look like. So if I type style, I can add this information inside. And let's say that I want it bold. and I close the bracket, you'll see it in bold. I can take it another step. I can even change the color to be green. And you can see all of the text options inside of here, B for bold, U for underline, and so on. And this can be a really great starting point if you're new to formulas, that you just want to change one of these texts into a different style. And this can allow you to, instead of having this, to click here, properties, show the text formula, and hide the location here. So now we have something a little bit more fancy for this. So now if we go back, let's go ahead and look for other ways to add formulas. So let's say in my notes, now we have this place here where I add number of words. And if I wanted to add a formula, which gives me a message if it's below a certain number that I should write more, I could add something like that. So let's say that I add a formula and edit formula. So if the number of words is less than 500, I want to show write more. And if not, good job. So now if I save, you can see good job because I've written over 500 words. If let's say that this was 200 words, I have write more. So word count met ? So this is another useful way to add a formula. Another thing you could add formula would be the date that you should review this note. Let's say that a month after it's created, you have to make sure to review it. You can edit the formula and take the created time, and we can, for example, add date add, and we want to add 1 month. Save. So here we have January 7th, and this one will be review date. So that's something else you can do as well. So you add a certain number of days to an existing date so that you have a review date is another really useful way. So as you can see, formulas are also very, very versatile, and you can do quite a lot with them. And I hope that these few examples could be useful for you. Next, let's go over something called sub-items. Sub-items are a way to nest pages inside of your database. So this is useful, for example, with tasks. So if I click this one open and I want to add a sub-task here, I can go to the 3 dots, customize task, and turn on sub-items. So this means that there's a parent item and sub-items inside. I can turn this on. And now if I click open task 2, I can add more tasks. So subtask 1, add new subtask. I can add subtask 2. So now I have 2 sub-items inside of task 2. What I can do is add the properties here to show my sub-items like this if I wanted to. And I can also go to the customize task sub-items, and I can show them either as only the parents. I can show them as a card property. I can show a flattened list, which means I see everything. And I can also disable. So I like to see sub-items usually as a card property. Usually sub-items work a bit better when it's in table view. So I can also show you that by duplicating this one and changing the layout to table. So this is also another great example of how you can view different things in different views, but still be the same data inside of the database. So this one shows up in board view, this one shows up in a table view. So now there's a toggle here where you can see subtasks inside, and they retain all of the properties of the original database as well. So you can create further subtask, subtask like this as well. So this is something you can also explore if you'd like. The next thing I wanted to showcase is database page layouts. Database page layouts are a relatively new feature in Notion, which allows you to see your database pages in a bit more variety of views. For this example, let's go ahead and take a database which has lots of properties. I think the one with the most is the notes at the moment, as you can see. So when you open up a note, there's so many properties here that it could be nice to organize them a bit better. Then you can click Customize Layout. This turns into a layout builder where you can add various things to a side panel if you'd wish, or organize your property groups this way. So first thing I can already do is just add everything to a side panel, apply it to all pages. And what this looks like is that now I can open this up and see the properties here instead of in here if I wanted to do that. I can also pin properties. So let's say that I want to pin the created time, the tags, and number of words. I can apply pages, and then I see them up here like this. A few other things I can do is I can add these as standalone areas here. So for example, if I wanted to show the word count, whether or not that's met, then I can click here and I can add to layout. So I only see this one, word count met. Apply to pages. And now I can see here the separate section. A few other things I can do is to group these properties. So if I go here, I can add a section. So let's say that I can make a section called word count. And inside word count, I'm going to put this one back to property group. So this is going to be under word count. I'm also going to unpin this one and put this one in here. So number of words. Then I can also add something like key info and move over my attachments, my review date, and my quick summary. So now what that looks like is if I see the details, you'll see the key info here and the word count like this. I can also move this in here, apply changes, and I see them like this. So these are some ways that you can edit your layout for your database pages. You can also go to this button here, page settings, if you want to access the things like inline comments and page discussions, property icons. So this is another thing you can edit. Next, let's go over some very simple automations. For example, one automation that you can add really easily are buttons. So to add buttons, I'm going to add a new block here called quick actions / divider. And I'm going to add this color to be green. And here I'll add buttons. So let's say that I want to add a new note. When the button is clicked, the action is going to be an add page to. I can select the database to be notes. And I can also open that page in page added in center peak and done. So now when I click this button, I automatically add a new note, and I can go ahead and go to notes and I'll see that new note that I just added. So quick action buttons can be a really good automation tool that you can quickly add pages to databases. Other actions that you can add through buttons are, for example, inserting blocks. You can edit pages in other databases, send notifications to people, show confirmations, open page form URL, send Slack notifications, and you can also define variables. This define variables is more complex, so I'm not going to cover this in this particular video, but stay tuned for a more complex automations video. So now that we have the new note button, which is going to add new notes, we can also add buttons to databases. So database property buttons, for example, let's say in a project, I could add a button which adds tasks to that project. So let's say I'm going to add a property, which is a button, and add task. And this button, if I edit the automation, is going to add a page to tasks. And I'm going to edit another property, which is the projects. And I want that project to be this page. And I also want to be able to open that page, the new page added, in Center Peak and save. So now I have a button to add tasks to here. So let's test it. So I add a new task, redesign my backyard, starting the process. And you'll notice that it's already tagged the correct project. Let's say that this is like this. Then if I click here, you'll see that I've added a new task. I can even show this button on this view as well. So if I click here and show the button, now I can just simply click here to add a task. So let's say that I'm going to add a task to my research one. So research several sources for inspiration. Now, if I click this one, I see that there is one task in here. Just so that it's really clear, I'm going to go back to my task list and I can see the new tasks that I just added here. So this is a really useful use case of buttons. The other automation that you can add is by this button here. However, this one is limited to Plus Plan and Beyond members if you want to be able to add these kinds of automations. So for example, if I want to add a trigger, which is that when the status is done, I want to be able to change one of the properties, like a date completion, to be completed, then I could do this. But since this is a sample workspace that I'm showing, unfortunately, I can only send Slack notifications at the moment, but also automations tend to be very complicated. So I'm not going to go too full detail into this, but you can check some of my automation videos for more information, which I'll link in the description. But basically what you can do is things like set a status to complete, and then it triggers an automation so that you have a completed date filled in with that date of triggering. And one thing to note also is that if you download a template that already has automations, then you can use that automation. So if this was already built in here, then you'd be able to use it. Otherwise, you do need a Plus Plan or further in order to actually edit and create this kind of database automations. Now, finally, let's talk about linked views. So as you already saw, this is one of my preferred methods of creating Notion workspaces, which is to create the basic databases first, and then add automations, formulas to those databases. And then finally, as the last step, I like to add linked views of databases into the main dashboard. So to do that, you will type /linked view database, which means that it's showing the exact same copy as what's here, but you can also manipulate the data through another view. So I want to show my personal calendar in calendar view like this, so that I can also click here to see it, but I can also see my full calendar here. And if I want to, I can also hide the database title so that I just see this calendar view like this. So now I do have this calendar here, but I also wanted to showcase again that you can mix and match different views inside of the same database. So if I click the plus sign here and I want to see a table, I can link the database, which is the calendar. And now I see my personal calendar inside of a table view. I can hide the database title, and you can basically see this version here like this. So it's very versatile in the sense that you can mix and match different views if you want to see them in different ways. I'm going to type here /heading 3, and this one is going to be my personal calendar, and I will change this one into a green background. So if I add a new calendar item here, I'm also going to see that here. So they're basically a linked view of the main database. You can add more linked views here. So let's say /heading 3. I want to see my task list. I can go ahead and add task list / divider, and I'll put / linked view of my tasks. And I want to see this one in board view. So I can hide database title. And again, you have your task list. So you could do something like this. I'll put this in green background. So now we have table, calendar view. I can go down to see my task list. And now that there's so many things here, you can also quickly access it by the table of contents. So if I want my task list, I can go here, personal calendar here, daily schedule here, and so on. Next, let's talk about forms. So forms is kind of like a database, but more like an add-on that connects to a database. And forms are a relatively new feature that's free for everyone, and it's really useful to use. So let's say that in my personal calendar, I have a group potluck coming up. And I want everyone to submit a form for what they're going to bring. So I'm going to type / form. And I'll just build the form into this calendar item. And I'm going to call this one potluck items. And I can change this so that who can fill it out is anyone on the web with the link. So I can just send this to my friends and they can answer with what they're going to bring to the potluck. So the question 1 could be name, and question 2 could be what are you going to bring? And this one I'm going to change to the type, which is text. So they can just answer with text. And here in the responses, when someone fills it out, you'll see their name, their submission type, and what they're going to bring. And if you share this to people, then they'll be able to answer this, and you'll see all the responses for what they're going to bring here. And this can be super handy that you can display this information to your guests as well, eliminate possibilities for too many items that are the same. And this brings me to another section, which is that after you create a form and you can share it to people, you can also preview it. Next, let's talk about share settings. So a really useful thing to do if you're planning a potluck is that you have a page which showcases information about the potluck. So let's go ahead and add a page in here, /page, that you're going to be sharing to everyone, potluck information page. So first thing you might want to do is have a callout box which shows info. So potluck will start at 7 p.m. at sample address, etc. So you could have some information here. Then the next thing is /heading 3, what everyone will bring, /divider. And here you can share the list of items that people have decided to bring. So if I go back here and I have the responses, what I can do is click here and copy link to responses. Then if I go to my potluck information page, I can type this one in, linked database view, where it shows all the responses. I can hide this database title, and basically I can hide the respondent. I can keep the submission time and what are you going to bring. So now if someone fills it out, it's going to show up here. Now I can put here, heading 3, form for potluck and /divider and then I can share the link to the form here. So if I go to group potluck, I'm at the form builder, share form, I can copy the link. Then if I go to the potluck information page, I can paste this in, and this way I can embed it. So now they can just submit their answer and it shows up here. So let's say Sarah will bring a salad, submit, and it's gonna show up inside of the responses. So now you can see that I am going to be bringing salad. So this way people can add the information that they want for it. And now you can click share so that you can share this whole information to the web to share with your friends. So I can publish this. I can copy the link here. And when I do that, I can edit this information if I have the Plus plan. I can do site customization if I also have the Plus plan. So it is a bit limited if you don't have that. I do have a tutorial on full customization features for Notion sites, which I can also leave in the description. Then link expiration also is locked, but you can also choose whether or not this is a duplicatable template. So if you are sharing Notion pages as a template, you'd want this on. In this case, since this is just a Potluck information page, I'm going to keep it off and just copy the link. Now let's see what this link looks like in practice. And one more thing you should do is to make sure that this database is shared to everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, responses. I'm going to go ahead and open this up, go to the three dots here, go to share, and I'm just going to publish this one also and turn off duplicate as template. So now we have the form builder, responses, Potluck information page. If I check the site, it's going to show what people are bringing as well as the form. So in this way, sharing is really useful inside of Notion. A few other share settings, if I go back to the Potluck information page and click the share button, is that there is these share settings. So here you can see there are various share access settings you can have when you invite someone to a page. They can either have can edit, can comment, can view, or you can remove access for that person. So keep that in mind when you share access. In this case, you needed to open this up and share the full database. Otherwise, this one didn't have the share setting. So you have to make sure that each item is shared, especially if it's a database inside of a page. So now we basically have completely designed our basic structure for this personal dashboard. I hope that this can be a really good starting point for you if you're looking to get started with Notion. It basically covered all of the different database views, formulas, relations, rollups, and a lot. So hopefully this gives you all of the ideas on what you can do to create your own personal workspace or for your team use or for your business. The next thing I wanted to do was briefly show you a few extra things that Notion offers that you might be interested in. The first one is Notion Home. Notion Home is a space where you can have a home page of all of your information. And this is really useful when you have a lot of pages that you want to consolidate. So in this case, we have a really nice, neat personal dashboard where everything is stored properly. But if you had additional pages floating around, databases floating around, and you want to make sure to see all of your events in one place, all of your tasks in one place, you can do so with Notion Home. And to edit Notion Home, you can click the three dots here and you can change the default page to see what you want to see in the main view. You can also show and hide widgets. So you can hide the greeting, you can choose to hide upcoming events. You can turn on My Task, Database Views, Learn, Feature Templates. So now you only see the recently visited, upcoming events, My Tasks, Home Views, and so on. For Home Views, you can select a database. Let's say you want to see your tasks here in Board View. You can see it here. For tasks, you will have to convert your tasks into a tasks database. To do that, you would need to go to your task database, go to the three dots here, customize tasks, and add like this, turn into task database. When you turn it into a task database, you can now see it inside of Notion Home. However, that task does need to be assigned to you. So have to make sure that it's assigned to me before it comes up here and I can take it off. So that's the limitation with My Tasks, is that it's really all the tasks assigned to you. So it's mainly useful if you are sharing Notion with a broad range of people across different databases and you need to keep track of only your tasks. The next thing is you can connect to your Google Calendar and access Notion Calendar, which allows you to see your Google Calendar items alongside your Notion calendar entries. This can be useful, but this is another separate app that you do need to download. So those are basically the Notion home features. Then I wanted to quickly cover calendar. So if you click explore Notion calendar, this again, you can download separately from Notion and see both Google Calendar and Notion calendars in the same view. I have a Notion calendar tutorial, which I would highly recommend if you're interested in this feature. It is a highly requested feature to be able to access your Google Calendar inside of Notion. And this is sort of an entryway to that, but it really doesn't accomplish exactly what you might want, in that you can, for example, add your Google Calendar into your Notion pages. You can open this in Calendar, and that's going to redirect you to Notion Calendar, so you can open these items there. The next piece of information I wanted to cover is how to use templates. So if you click here, this is the template marketplace that Notion launched. If you're interested in any of the organized notebook templates, you can simply type this here and you should see some templates here, for example, and you can click the creator button here and you'll see all of the different templates. I can quickly show you what it's like to add a free template into your workplace. So let's say that I want to add this habit tracker. So I can click this one and I can add it. And if I check my sidebar, the habit tracker is here. I can simply drag it here if I want it inside my personal home. And now I have my habit tracker. So you can access the habit tracker this way. So in that sense, you can add templates by doing that. I would recommend kind of integrating it into your dashboards, or you can just have them on the sidebar like this as well if you want something outside. So now the habit tracker is outside of my personal home. And for example, if you want to download a template externally, for example, on my website, all of the templates are shared outside of Notion's marketplace, which means that when you purchase one, it's going to come with a link. And if you put the link in your browser and you click the duplicate button, it's going to duplicate into your workspace. So that's how you get templates into your workspace, through external templates. And finally, I wanted to briefly cover Notion AI. So I did show this Notion AI chatting section here. And you can use it to chat with AI and ask it all kinds of questions, from helping you with ideas for blog outlines. So for example, give me some ideas about a Notion blog. It would generate an answer here. And as you can see, it's actually going through what you already have in your workspace as well. Then some other things you can do, you can copy this and put it in your page. Some other really unique things that you can do with Notion AI is that you can add AI properties. So if I click here, I can add an AI summary. So I can turn on this view and it's going to summarize it for me. A few other cool things is that you can add some block-based AI blocks. So let's say that I want to add a custom AI block where I wanted to help me to think of how to take notes. Then I can generate. And one cool thing you can do is that you can actually add these blocks as database templates. So if I click here and edit this meeting note, I can also add /AI and add a custom AI block to summarize my content inside. And instead of generate, I can simply click out, add a new page here, which is the meeting note. And I have the option to store AI prompts this way. So those are some of the ways that I would recommend using AI inside of Notion that I personally find really useful. But if you're not really into AI or you don't feel like you use it as much, then you definitely don't need the upgrade. Even with this lengthy tutorial, there's so much to be covered with Notion. If you'd like to learn more in depth and get even better at using it, I highly recommend following some of my other tutorials on how to build various pages and how to utilize Notion features. I also offer one-on-one coaching sessions if you like further individualized help. The final piece of advice I have for everyone is to keep things simple. It's easy to get carried away by Notion. Mold your workspace as you go for your own individual and team needs, and have fun. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to comment below if you have any questions or thoughts, and I hope to see you all in the next video.